Hello, I'm Dr. Nathan Gellert. In this video about motivational interviewing, I'll be talking about ambivalence and the concepts of sustained talk and change talk. Change talk and sustained talk relate directly to the third process in motivational interviewing, evoking. Evoking entails identifying and strengthening motivation for change. This process begins after a period of engaging with the client and deciding on a focus for treatment. Engaging and focusing happen in many styles of counseling. The evoking process is unique to motivational interviewing. Evoking happens when the counselor recognizes the client talking about change and responds in ways that increase the amount of change talk. This type of conversation happens in the context of client ambivalence. What is ambivalence? It is simply the state of having mixed feelings or contradictory feelings about something. It's that difficult feeling that we've all experienced when we feel torn between two choices. Importantly, ambivalence is just a step on the way to change. Another way to think about ambivalence is that it indicates progress from pre-contemplation to contemplation. As this graphic illustrates, ambivalence exists between the status quo and change. What's tough about being in a state of ambivalence is that as a person moves closer to one choice, then the other choice can begin to seem more appealing. A similar phenomenon can happen if the counselor expresses interest in one argument for or against change. When this happens, the client will most likely respond with counterarguments. Again, this is the push and pull of being torn between two choices. This is why, when exploring ambivalence and change, counselor neutrality is incredibly important. The counselor favoring one side will push the client to defend the other side of change. Ambivalence is easily identified through its two parts, change talk and sustained talk. Let's now explore each of them, starting with change talk. Change talk is any self-expressed language that is an argument for change. It is a verbal behavior that signals movement towards change. There are two types of change talk, preparatory change talk and mobilizing change talk. Preparatory change talk involves language that signals exploration of change. There are four types of preparatory change talk: desire for change, ability to change, reasons for change, and need for change. You can easily remember preparatory change talk with the mnemonic DARN: desire, ability, reason, and need. A desire for change signals a want. For example, I want to get in shape, or I would like to learn more about my birth mother. Desire statements often begin with I want to, or I would like to. Wanting is one way to be motivated for change, but it is not essential for change. Sometimes people decide to change even though they don't want to. Ability involves a person's self-perceived ability to succeed at changing. For example, I could exercise more when I crave a smoke. I can imagine this change. I'm able to cut back on sweets. Notice that ability statements often begin with I could, I can, or I am able. Reasons for change involve statements about specific reasons for change. For instance, I would be happier if I had more friends. If I did my homework, then I would be less worried about my grades. Reason statements often have an if-then format. If I did this, the reason, then I would. Need involves statements that stress the importance or urgency of change. For example, I need to be able to pay my bills. I have to get better sleep. I must find better ways to relax. Need statements often start with I need to, I have to, or I must. Need statements do not state why change is important. If they did, then they would be reasons. Again, reasons for change are specific reasons. Need statements imply importance or urgency. So, those are the darn categories of preparatory change talk. As statements that explore the possibility of change, darn statements do not indicate that change is going to happen. Mobilizing change talk does signal movement towards the resolution of ambivalence in favor of change. There are 3 types of mobilizing change talk which can be remembered with the mnemonic CAT: commitment, activation, and taking steps. Commitment is the clearest form of mobilizing change talk. It signals that change is likely to happen. We use commitment language when we make promises. Examples include, I will, I promise, I swear, I guarantee, I give you my word. When our clients make these statements, we know that change is likely to occur. Another form of mobilizing change talk is activation, which indicates movement towards action. It's not necessarily a form of commitment, but does indicate that a person is leaning in a certain direction. Examples of activation statements would include, I'm willing to work harder next time. I am ready to go on medication. I am prepared to make sacrifices. Notice that these statements are not as strong as commitment statements, but they do suggest that commitment might soon happen. The third form of mobilizing change talk is taking steps. When a person takes a step, they have done something in the direction of change. For example, I searched online for gyms near my home. I tried taking the stairs instead. I didn't smoke for 2 days this week. I called my cousin to chat about degrees in engineering. Though often small, steps taken towards change are hugely important because every large change involves lots of little changes. A person who locates nearby gyms isn't in shape, but they're closer to being in shape. A person who quits smoking for 2 days and then starts again hasn't quit smoking, but they're closer to quitting smoking. This means that it's very important to affirm even the smallest of client steps to help keep them motivated towards change. Miller and Rollnick talk about preparatory change talk and mobilizing change talk being like a mountain. Climbing up the mountain, the preparatory change talk is often a long, slow process. You'll feel a big difference when mobilizing change talk starts happening. It'll feel like the easier task of skiing down the mountain. Notice, too, how change talk relates to the stages of change. Preparatory change talk happens during contemplation and the beginning of preparation. Mobilizing change talk happens through the stages of preparation and action. The final stage after mobilizing change talk is change itself. We'll now turn to the opposite of change talk, which is sustain talk. Sustain talk are client statements that support the status quo. Consider the statements, I don't want to move. I've always failed at change. I'm really comfortable in my job. My health will be okay if I just drink less. Notice how sustain talk also comes in the form of darn. Every darn statement has an opposite form that supports the status quo. Thank you for joining me for this video. In the next video, I'll talk about how to evoke change talk and respond to it when it happens, which are key steps in increasing client motivation for change. Please click the subscribe button to receive notifications when new videos are published. And if you've enjoyed this video, then please click the like button to support my work.